and welcome to Seize the Data. I think this is probably like our 11th or 12th episode by now. Today I'm very excited to welcome Luke to the podcast. Luke actually just joined us on the Datalogz team from Tyson Foods. We met, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago at this point.
2 years ago.
But I got to know him because I guess in the Power BI fabric world, he became known as just Mr. Power BI. Like even Microsoft started calling him that, where any API, any question, he is the go-to expert in. And he really joined our team to help figure out how we make our customers more successful, improve our product, of course, in the Power BI space, but also all the other analytics team tools. So we're very excited to have you on the team, Luke. But I'm sure you can do a much better intro than that. So I'll turn it over to you to give your quick background.
Yeah, it's great to be here. And this is week 2. A lot of thinking, stewing, and learning about, all sorts of perspectives about data and how we can make a change in place. So yeah, I'm Luke Syverson. I came from Tyson, worked in the data space and stuff about 6 years. Had some exposure to Datalogz when I tried to run our Power BI tenant out of the ground and into, very happy land. And in the process, I was called Mr. Power BI by an account team, so not all of Microsoft, probably a contested title. And I found there's a lot to learn about successfully running a Power BI tenant. I told people I herded cats for a living when I didn't want to give them my full job description. And now in Datalogz, you can do a lot better than herding cats, as I've come to find out.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that background. And then our topic today is really going to be focused, I think, mainly on talking about BI and, of course, the impact from AI and what's happening. So, Luke, I'm just curious from your perspective. I guess you've lived it in Tyson from pre-AI Copilot world. And then one day, everyone has Copilot. Everyone can ask ChatGPT any question. What actually happened when that kind of shift in workflows and people start getting agents, LLMs involved? As the admin on the backside, did you see anything change?
Yeah, there was a lot of different approaches and a lot of freedom in how people chose to get involved with AI tooling. I was really fortunate to have some great mentors and a lot of heads up on the way in. So we put around some guardrails for the AI expansions, but there was only so much that we could anticipate. So we saw people start using AI slowly with Copilot and then doing some vibe coding. And then just about overnight with some of the Claude Code stuff, we went from, we feel pretty on top of our AI implementations to, we have a brand new front end for this app, and now we have to build the back end, and it's going to replace this Power BI report we've been using for n number of years. So it's quite a bit of churn at one point, and there was I presume it's still ongoing. It was a lot of unanswered questions about the time I started here. But lots of change, lots of excitement, really cool things happening in the space, but also it became very apparent to me a greater need than ever for some standards and from structure for how people should be engaging with data at a high level because the demand is increasing.
Okay. Yeah, and I think you mentioned in there guardrails around AI. So I think it's a very important topic. So I'm curious, what were the kind of day one guardrails, and did those survive? Did you guys get it right? Did you get it wrong? And kind of what you wish you had in terms of guardrails.
Yeah, man, what I wish I would have. Well, we'll come back to that. I missed in my intro. I was a really big fan of Datalogz for the longest time, so maybe having Datalogz would have been a little helpful. But other than that, on our future topic, what we'll talk about, we set up distribution lists and AD groups so you could opt in to the AI features, but it wasn't just native to the platform. And then we slowly turned it on and then did a little bit of a small kind of grassroots campaign with the actual BI developers and told them to encourage people to use it at their own speed. So we did kind of a slow, delayed rollout for some of the, specifically the Power BI Copilot features that came out. And we saw, as expected, slow linear type adoption as different teams introduced the tooling to other groups. And we saw some more confidence. And then what I was maybe the most surprised to see, and what I wish I had, was more advice for the developers that came back to me and said, oh, this tooling is difficult. We're having lots of hallucination problems. We are having trouble tying to our ERP and other systems that we compare to all day long. And Power BI at the time didn't seem totally equipped to handle that in a broad brush manner. So there are some things I know now and some things that you can unlock to get some better answers for that. But at the time I said, well, just be careful and good luck and call me if you have a problem, because that's what we did. So it was a lot of on the fly, and I don't think that was very scalable. So we did some stuff to control it, but I don't know how you scale your AI deployments without some real structure and some real strategy from data about your data, your metadata.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you bring an interesting point, like when you have a bunch of people vibe coding different apps, different reports, there's a world, of course, where that lives in just Power BI happening. But then you have the lovables of the mix where anyone non-technical can basically build anything in minutes. And when you think about kind of AI investment into BI, how have things shifted at the enterprise level? Because I think I see it as like, okay, we had this area, there's still a lot of Power BI reports used for years, we trust them, we have people vibe coding there, we have people building just applications outside of the traditional BI stack to solve a BI type question and purpose. You have your chat bots answering BI type questions that's supposed to magically get everything right, because I think everyone claims to have a semantic layer that has all data in and aligned metrics. So I'm just curious, like you weigh all these different categories that are all impacted by AI, like what does the future of BI actually look like?
It's $1 million question. I'll take a stab at it. The synthesis from asking a lot of really smart people, listening to a lot of smart people, and just kind of plugging and doing the analytics work and doing dozens and dozens of hours of customer and data leader interviews over the course of my career. I have the opinion that the AI direction is an accelerant. It's a tool. It's not a replacement. I read a really fantastic quote. I think it was from Aha. Yes, I wrote it down. I did prepare for this. The idea in garbage in, garbage out for data, or GIGO as people call it, the quote from U.S. Army computer scientist 1957, something like, computers cannot think for themselves and sloppily programmed inputs inevitably lead to incorrect outputs. So in other words, you can have a lot of trouble if you don't have precision tuned instruments going where they need to go. And when you deploy LLMs and you have all sorts of AI enablement, there needs to be some direction. So where there is direction, Logan, I think there's a massive frontier of natural language queries, of very fast accelerated debugging, leverages, I would use the term force multipliers for getting your governance across the line, all sorts of scripting assistance. That, in terms of administering a BI environment and keeping it clean and then keeping users engaged with it, that is definitely the future. What I would say it isn't going to do, it's not going to replace your thinking, right? Your thinking has to be done a little bit outside the system. And the questions, the age-old software development engineering questions, what needs doing, who needs it, why is this important, where's the value, how do we deliver this? Those things, those systems, at least today, are done and will be done by humans. So using AI as an accelerator for that kind of thinking and getting more value delivered sooner, absolutely, and all over the place.
I had no idea the garbage in, garbage out quote was from the 1950s. It's funny, I've gotten on to like our team because I think it's a little bit overused at this point. Like you go to any conference and it's like, okay, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out, repeated over and over again. But I think it is like, it holds so true. And I think on that note, the amount of like slop being generated. And I don't know if slop is still the official enterprise term, because you can just build whatever you want in seconds. And people don't realize, like, okay, if you land a slop report in your Power BI tenant, that's going to train something else. And as you have more and more of these, like this snowball ripple effect of more and more slop existing. So how do you manage that? I guess it's a garbage in problem, but you also have, I guess, garbage out, but at a different scale at this point.
Yeah, so I would put forward that it's not so new of a problem as you might think. And for those of you who are BI, tenant admins, COE leads, this may be old hat for you. People get a new tool, call it, let's say AI, or maybe let's call it self-service business intelligence, and we release it to the wild and have a lot of grand aspirations for it, pay quite a bit of money for it, and then see what happens. And there's a term, I think, Logan, you might be familiar, it's called BI sprawl, where you have a lot of well-meaning people putting out a lot of great assets that don't have maybe all of the rigor or don't amount to everything that they were intended to amount to in the very beginning. So I found that in working in data for my career, the environment where so much is cast off, things are really replaceable or disposable, even including reports, you have a lot of leftovers. And the best thing to do for your environment is to denoise and focus on those stars. Find a way to create the contrast by getting rid of all that noise and single out those really valuable contributors. So in AI, when I saw some of the more recent developments, there's a big difference between building a natural language query processor for semantic. Well, let me detechnicalize that. If you want to ask questions on your keyboard or on your phone about certain types of data, and that gets built for you, and 100 people use it the first day it's out, and that continues, excellent. If you build what amounts to a calculator in HTML and then hope that replaces an enterprise-grade write-back solution, you're going to have more of that slop. So you can let people build. It's not terribly expensive to put together some mock-ups and that sort of thing. But in the process, as good stewards of your environment, you should be cleaning. You should be pruning. You should be taking those people that are experimenting to the next level with, well, data-driven insights. And you should be doing that in a measurable and a strategic way.
Yeah, I fully agree on measurable and strategic. And I guess on like strategy front for that, like from a Datalogz perspective, I guess for a long time, we've been just saying, hey, clean up the environment, remove the junk. But when you think about a Power BI environment, I mean, removing a report's not going to actually impact your cost and compute. Removing a semantic model or data layer would. But it's interesting to think about, like, in the data world, is there's so much time spent on the medallion architecture. What are your good data assets? What is not? Because those are inputs into reports. And now in the reporting world, your report is an input into the next report that's made, because that's where the semantic model lives. So I'm kind of wondering, like, right now in the industry, are we getting it wrong? Where instead of, hey, go clean up everything, like, why not just have a similar medallion architecture where these are our gold reports that can be an input into future reports that we trust AI with. Everything else we're going to exclude. We don't need, if we have 40,000 reports, to care about every single thing. We just need to separate what's experimentation, what is a okay asset, maybe trusted, maybe not, but solve someone's use case, fine, it's not impacting the company, they think it's right, they're getting the numbers right, getting their day job right. And what is a thing that is going to be passed around or trained on, impacted? So I'm curious, just from your perspective, are we getting it right on kind of cleaning sprawl, managing it? Is there need to be a new paradigm shift here for the AI era?
That's a wonderful question. Are we getting it right? Well, depends on who we might be. And I know we're certainly trying. I'll answer your question in a different way. If you are thinking that running some scripts and looking at some reports and keeping a spreadsheet up to date on 2 or 3 items will get you across the finish line for having an environment ready for accelerating and shortening that deployment pipeline. Probably not doing it right. But if you have thinking that's structured around what do people want, what are they expressing that they want, what demand signals are they creating through their usage of different BI and AI assets, if you're considering that, if you're using that as part of your information flow in your decisions and saying, this month this happened and this month things changed, and you have a cognizance of that, then I don't know how you could go wrong other than some pretty gross mistakes. I mean, having an awareness of value is one of the hardest things to retain. Just objectivity in life in general can be a real challenge, and having data at your fingertips to make it clear what's valuable not only to you but to your enterprise is the game changer. It's a differentiator. It also shortens your times to make decisions and increases your confidence in those same decisions. It's a no-brainer. If you have the opportunity to get more data put together about what people care about and what they make decisions for, then you should do it. I would say that's the right way to go about it.
Okay. And what are we getting wrong today then?
Well, this is a tough question.
Yeah.
I'm almost reluctant to answer it, but you're my boss, so I guess I will. There is the word hype. It's maybe overused, so I'll redefine it and say people are really excited about new, fantastic technology that exists. And I know my experience with large language models using ChatGPT to help me debug Python scripts as I was learning Python was phenomenal. And I went through the stages of generating my own slop and going back and saying, oh, this is garbage, we gotta clean this up, and a rather holistic learning process. And that was great. Now, if you weren't introduced to AI 3 years ago and somebody says, hey, your team is now AI, I want you to have Claude code installed by the end of the day and do fantastic things with it at the end of the month, you might not be off to a rocky start, and you might make some wrong decisions. So it begs the question, what is AI an accelerant of? Well, decisions, processes, development. That's all great, and all of those things I mentioned are guided by guiding principles and strategy. The thing to remember is that you do your thinking outside the system, and then you bring it to the system. It's your special sauce as an intelligent, not artificial. As an intelligent human being, you bring your decision making to the table. And I don't think, in the same way that I don't believe that AI is going to replace all of your BI environments overnight because it's magic. It's also not going to replace your thinking, not anytime soon, anyways. And maybe we'll get into that, but maybe in another podcast we can talk about.
The general intelligence coming out soon is just replaced, and you hear about all the one-person companies that are running with just agents for everything in the background. But I guess it's still a tool. You have to know how to use it well. I can give an example I was working on over this weekend where I was trying to use Claude to QA test our application. And I said, Claude, go QA. And clicked around, found things that didn't matter whatsoever. I was like, okay, how would I talk to a human doing this? Write me 50 QA scenario tests to go test. Great, got my 50 QA scenario tests. 40 of those weren't relevant at all. We narrowed it down to 10. I was like, okay, this is going to take too long because I'm still the one thinking through what are these things I actually want to QA and test. And I said, okay, we have some user session information. Let me have Claude go look at that. So it needed additional metadata, additional input to actually get to a decent result. And with that, we were able to get somewhere. Now, I still ended up just saying, okay, I've spent more time trying to get Claude to be my QA. I can just go click around and figure out for this new release where there's issues, where there's not. So it helps speed up, and maybe there's some things that did really well, like load time on pages. I didn't want to sit there with a stopwatch timing each page and updating a spreadsheet. That was fantastic. but user flows and that intelligence piece weren't in it. And then I think the other example of just AI that I have recently is I took a list of our conference leads and said, Claude, go update this to our CRM. And it somehow, from a list of 100 people, updated 500 new records. And I was like, okay, there's only 100 people in the CSV. What in the world happened? And the response was, I hallucinated additional records because more records is better for a sales team. I was like, okay, I mean, it's like 2 steps ahead, making up leads, but not great. But I think my point is, like, you need metadata, you need direction to do that at scale. And that metadata from an analytics environment is also really important. Like, if you're going to go clean up BI, you need to know usage patterns, dependencies, and other things. So I guess, Luke, could you just talk a little bit about metadata's impact on governance, managing BI, managing Power BI, and your thoughts there?
Yeah, I can give you a story too. So imagine you're a junior BI developer or an analyst or whatever it's called, and it's week 3 on the job. And your mentor says, hey, I want to see what you can do with this data. So they hand you a data set, they hand you a dictionary, maybe updated in the last year or 2, maybe not. And they say, go crazy, give me some insights. I did that a lot in school in particular. I think we handed some students similar information like that, similar tasks, and we got about what we put into it. So there are tasks that are really well suited for complex thinking. There are tasks that are suited for very routine, follow the bouncing ball type operations. And where AI succeeds just naturally is where there is a huge documentation. There's lots of precedent for its type of thinking. Lots of people have documented their thinking on the topic. Those are no-brainers for pulling in AI. And that's the case for metadata. Metadata is making those no-brainers. So if you want to enable AI, one, you should think about where you want AI. Where are these easy wins, these low-hanging fruit opportunities to get AI in places where it's well documented, processes are known, and people are happy to say, please let somebody else do this job. And then if you want that to continue, you should take the processes and the lessons learned from simplifying these by means of metadata analysis and critical thinking in the space of what do people want, and then accelerate your next AI deployments with those. And then you can simplify the work that maybe you don't want to do, which is updating a bunch of logs in your CRM, and take that work to making higher quality decisions, being more conscientious of what your customers want, finding that next case, that next lead, whatever it is that you're trying to do to make the money that the AI can't do for you, you should spend more of your time doing that. And if you start with metadata, if you start with making the AI's job easy and making it reliable and testable, and also a small scope really helps to start with, you can find your way into those enterprise deployments with a bit more confidence than just saying, hey, tomorrow we're going to replace this enterprise BI app with Claude somehow. So take it slow.
Yeah, I like the scope piece of that, is narrow, reduce there. And then I know we did a little bit of prep for this, but was there anything that you wanted to talk about that I missed in the questions, or just final thoughts as we close out?
Yeah. If you find yourself in the AI position, I remember getting a call from some of my coworkers saying, "Oh, we want to talk to you because we don't know who to talk to, but we need to do AI." If you find yourself in that situation, or if you find yourself interested in being part of the AI revolution in data and analytics, take a moment and think about, what are you trying to get out of it? What is it that you want to do? And then how does that get to the next level? And once you have a little bit of an outline, your problem statement, then you can ask the traditional questions. How do we measure this? How do we observe it? Where do we find our strengths and weaknesses? And if the voice of the customer is a part of that, and if that's demand signals, or if that's some representation of complexity for the work that's already been done. If you want to look at the amount of times a user has interacted with a semantic model in Power BI or which density per user, you want to make up some metrics, great. You're going to need metadata, and well, you can call us. We can help you find it in the BI space. But if you need to start small, you need to take one start. Just load up a usage report. Somebody's going to have usage, and ask yourself, what does this tell you? And then start asking, what's the voice of the customer? Start building those tight feedback loops. And if you get in the habit of doing that, and you want to scale up and denoise your entire enterprise BI environment, you'll be ready to get value out of our product. Pretty much day one. It takes us, 15 minutes, and you're ready to go. You're going to have some data, and you're going to go, wow, I wish I had all of this from my default plugin, and well, now you do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was a great point to end on. And Luke, thanks very much for joining today, and welcome to Datalogz as well as the podcast.
Yeah, cheers. Great to be here. Thank you so much, Logan.